हेलो फ्रेंड्स. दिस इज़ वेंकटेश चतुर्वेदी. मेरा नाम है वेंकटेश चतुर्वेदी. मैं एजुकेटर हूँ अन अकेडमी के साथ, एंड आई एम टेकिंग अ लाइव सेशन ऑन द स्ट्रैटेजी of how to read the Hindu newspaper for UPSC civil service preparation. All right, so let's wait for a moment. Let's let some people join in. Yeah, yeah. Am I visible to people? Am I live? Yeah, I guess I'm live. Yeah. Good evening, everybody. So this is Venkatesh Chaturvedi, live yet again with An Academy, and the session for today is upon how to read the Hindu newspaper, for UPSC civil service preparation. Specifically, okay. So why I take this session, because already there have been many sessions taken by several other educators such as Roman Seni sir, Dipanshu Singh, and different other educators as well. But what is unique in this in this is that there have been the changes in how the Hindu has been structured in the recent past, and probably many of you might be feeling a bit a bit confused regarding how to read the Hindu, what sections to read, कौन से sections बहुत important है, कौन से sections नहीं important है, because it is a huge paper. Specifically अगर Sunday का न्यूज़पेपर देखें, जो आज का न्यूज़पेपर जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल है 42 पेजेस लगभग होते हैं. There are around 42 pages, 2 parts to the Hindu paper. It's very tough to complete it, but I'm sure after going through this lecture, this live session, you would be able to read the newspaper within 1 hour. 1 hour is something which is optimal. You do not have to read more than 1 hour. I used to initially read for 2 hours also. I tried to reduce it to 90 minutes. Now I'm able to read it under an hour. So that is what the target should be, because it takes a lot of time and effort, and eventually time is something which is very essential. So if you are able to complete the Hindu, or any newspaper for that matter actually, so it under limited time, so that is the best thing. So that is something which will help you out, right? So what I'll be dividing it into 2 sections. Those sections में divide किया जाएगा. The first section would be about the weekday newspapers, the normal Hindu newspaper, and then afterwards I'll be also mentioning how to read the Sunday edition as well. Alright, so let's start off with the thing, and I'll try to be as bilingual as possible. मैं हिंदी और इंग्लिश दोनों में स्विच करके बताता रहूँगा ताकि सब लोगों को समझ में आए, right? So I try to be as bilingual as possible. Alright, so let's start off. Start करते हैं पहले पेज से. The front page is basically where some of the best and the most important news are there generally. Why I say generally? Because sometimes the front page disappoints, and there are no substantial news for UPSC preparation as of to say. Obviously no news is bad news, but the thing is that for UPSC preparation we need to channelize, we need to remove the garbage, and we need to just take in those articles, read those articles which are important. Alright, so the front page is something which you should first of all skim through. आपको पढ़ लेना चाहिए कि कौन-कौन से headlines हैं, and then go ahead with it. And in order to understand which articles to read, there is an daily series by me which is running. मेरा daily series चल रहा है on An Academy, जिसमें under 10 minutes I highlight which articles were important and why. So you can go through that. You can follow that particular course there. You can also follow course by Abhishek Srivastav, in which he takes the summary of Hindu, and you will be able to understand the articles better there. Alright, so the thing is, the front page is something which everyone has to read. जरूरी है उसको पढ़ना. उसमें not every article is to be studied, but that is something जिसके headlines पढ़ लेना जरूरी है. Alright, then we come to the second, third, fourth page generally, which are about south, north, city, which I would recommend do not go through, or do not go through them at all, because every edition of Hindu, there would be a Tamil Nadu edition, there will be a Karnataka edition, there will be a Delhi edition. They would have different news. So there's no point of reading those articles as per my opinion. That would be my opinion. Probably if you find some news which is relevant for your optional there, that is something which you can do. Like for example, I have an optional of public administration. So for that, city news sometimes bring out some of the case studies which are important. So for optional point of view, I am not touching at all. That is completely your discretion what news you want to study. But for general studies, the second, third, fourth pages are generally not important. Then we come to the section which is generally on the 5th page, which is the national section. it could be on 5th, it could be in 6th, but that is very important. All right, so the thing is something to note about, हम लोग जनरली फोकस कर लेते हैं मेन न्यूज़ेस को जो यहाँ पे आपके राइट साइड में और सेंटर साइड पे होते हैं. सो द न्यूज़ विच आर देयर इन द सेंटर एंड द राइट, वी जनरली फोकस ऑन द बिग आर्टिकल्स, बट वी जनरली फॉरगेट इन ब्रीफ. बट डू नॉट डू दैट. The left section there would be a column, so that is something which is there. आपके column में बहुत छोटी न्यूज़ होंगी. There will be small photograph under which there will be a small article, small photograph, small article, something of that sort. We neglect it because we think that it's an irrelevant piece of information we should not know, but that is completely wrong. Please, you need to at least go through the headline there and then see that which articles are important, because some of those articles can be directly asked in prelims, because those are some relevant information which are not too highlighted, but they are still there, right? Then the national page is something which you should read, and only those articles which are relevant for our exam point of view. So I'll give you an example what not to read, right? So that will make things more easy. So like I'm just looking at the Saturday's newspaper, that is of yesterday. So there was this article on 1 killed, several injured at mob turned violent in Samastipur. So though it is a very important important news as such, but it is not so relevant for UPSC preparation. Alright, but if you see the adjacent article which says 20 Indian Air Force aircraft set to land on expressway, so that is an important information for specifically mains perspective. Why? Because we should know that the expressway can help in not only being a mode of transportation but also for strategic purposes. For strategic purpose के लिए भी एक्सप्रेसवे की यूटिलिटी हो सकती है, जिसके लिए ऑपरेशंस चलते हैं, जिसके लिए टेस्ट चलते हैं. ये हमको पता होना चाहिए, हम कभी भी मेंस में आंसर लिख सकते हैं. ऑलराइट, एंड देन सो अब देख सकते हैं कि हाउ टू डिफरेंशिएट. देन अगेन एक और एग्जांपल देखते हैं कि 5 इंजर्ड एज ब्रिज कोलैप्सेस इन हिमाचल, नॉट सो इम्पोर्टेंट फॉर अस. ऑलराइट, देन वी हैव so that is how you can see that which articles are important, which are not important. Alright, then we after the national page जो होता है उसके बाद आता है सबसे important, one of the most important specifically for mains. उसमें कुछ prelims related भी चीज़ें but आ जाती हैं, so इसलिए we need to be very thorough with it. That is the editorial section. बचपन से ही since our childhood हमारे पेरेंट्स ने बोला है कि बेटा अगर न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ रहे हो तो एटलीस्ट एडिटोरियल पढ़ लो, अगर नहीं भी पढ़ रहे हो बाकी चीज़ें. So there is a reason for that. There is a reason why we have always been since childhood told to read the editorial at least. First of all, it has good English, so it will increase your writing ability. आपकी English अच्छी होगी, it will be more. You'll learn new words, you'll learn new new sentence formation. Sentence formation आपकी सुधरेगी. Then you'll get better perspective. Especially after the revamp of Hindu, the editorial section has become more important, because generally there is this left, right, center section which we'll come to, which is very important, and I'll let you know why as well. Alright, so let's come to the editorial section. So here now, if you see the editorial section, it is generally the fact that there are two editorial columns there. Alright, 2 articles will be there, and then we will have 2 articles here at the rest of the page, and there will be a photograph in between, which is generally an infographics, and then below which there is some letter to the editor. So letter to editor is not important, but these 4 articles are very important. Alright, and one more thing before I proceed further, the images and the photographs which are shown, right, not the cartoons as such, but the images of some dances or some festival which are shown, we generally neglect that, thinking it is not a part of any big article, therefore let's neglect it. But please don't do that. Why? Because those questions could be easy picking questions for prelims from science and technology or art and culture. So for example, if some folk dance is being represented there and a line is being written, do not miss that. Read it out, see if the name of the dance is given, the name of the music form is given, the place is given. So that is something which you should know. So we generally forget that. We should not do that at all. Then आता है हमारा the editorial. So the left 2 columns are generally very important, but sometimes it is not important. Alright, like for example, like we have two columns yesterday. The first one was Darjeeling deadlock, so which was important, as I had already mentioned in my course as well, because we should know what is the what is the demands of GJM there, what is the crisis at Darjeeling, what is the conflict between the center and the West Bengal government as of now. There was a stay given by the Calcutta High Court as well, so that those things are covered here, therefore it is important, right? But then we have the editorial there below that, which is on Kenyan elections, not important at all. Alright, so sometimes these Scandinavian countries, their elections are happening and those articles come, so those we do not have to read. Alright, if you are very interested, you're very much interested yourself, if you want to read on your own, it is completely fine. But for core general studies, those articles are not important at all. Alright, then we have the two articles here. So the thing is, after a while, एक समय के बाद, you will start to identify that which article, which authors you need to read, because there are very regular authors there, like there will be former RBI governors writing the articles there. There will be former CBI directors and former diplomats, former ambassadors writing on some very important issues. So those articles are something which you should definitely read. So the thing is, over the time, what you have to develop is, you need to even know the names of the people who are writing these articles. Why? Not for examination point of view, but to know that who are the writers who write very frequently and very good articles, so that whenever you see any article, any new article on these two pages, right, on these two sections, you will understand that who has written it by the name, and then you will identify that I have already read a lot of articles which were very good, therefore there is lot of credibility associated, काफी credibility है इनके articles में, इसलिए this article should also be a good article. So that is how you start to identify people. Alright, so जैसे आज कल के उसमें आर्टिकल में राकेश सूद ने लिखा था and Sanjeev Pohit ने लिखा था, right? So the second article, which was written by Sanjeev Pohit, which is on a flood of questions, was very important. There were 4 issues identified there about the fact that in addition to having inter river linkages, there are other issues as well which we should consider. So it was very important for inter-state water disputes and for for having more irrigation coverage in the country as well. So this was very important article. But the article above that, which was on unraveling of Iran deal, so it is something, if you haven't ever read about Iran deal, what is happening, this is something which you should read. But if you are already aware, this is something which you can avoid as well, because this did not have anything very new. It was if you are well versed with what is happening between US and Iran, so this is something which you can avoid as well if you have time constraint. Alright, then we have the 7th page generally also has the right, left and center, which is very important. Yesterday there was the ground zero, which you can completely avoid. Ground zero section you can completely avoid, but instead of ground zero, sometimes right, left and center and conceptual and those articles are there, which are very important. So that is something after the editorial section on the 7th, which is op-ed section, which you should read about. Alright, ground zero, do not read at all. It will be a very big article which has no meaning as such for our preparation purpose. Alright, then after the editorial, after the op-ed section, we have the news section. So national has already been there before the editorial. So that is how generally I channelize. I structure my course as well on key important issues from newspapers. So I make the pre-editorial, editorial and post-editorial, so that there's a clear clarity there as well. So the news section, that is important because those are the articles which are continued from the front page. So front page would have some of the important articles. So those articles would be analyzed even in more depth, more information would be given on this page, which is generally the 8th or the 9th page, and is by the name of news. Alright, so so headlines are to be read, and this section has to be read, and over the time you will yourself identify the articles which are important, which are not important. Alright, so let me give you an example. I've already done that in the national section, so why not do that for news as well. So for instance, there is a news on another PDP MLA's house attack. So not important for us at all. We do not need to know the names of these these people, and we do not need to know who was attacked by whom. So we can completely avoid that. Alright, but then there was this article on government plans to boost rural employment. So very important for us, right? For rural employment is in the core. What is government doing? A big article, a big essay could be asked on what steps the government has taken for rural employment. A question can come in means. A question can come in your optional if you have a social science optional as such. So that is why this page is very important. Then next we come to again the news page would be there continued generally, so that is again the same thing. Then we have the word section. So the word section is something which I personally do not read at all. I do not read word section. What I do, I go to any of these monthly magazines by different coaching institutes, and I read them at the end of the month. Why do I say so? Because the word section here, what would happen is, if you, for example, if Narendra Modi has gone to XYZ country, so on a day 1 the article would be that the flight has taken off. On the day 2, the news would be that the flight has landed, and on day 3 the news would be that Modi said this. On the day 4 the news would be that the representative from the other country said this. So you can see that you will have to actually read continuously for 5, 6, 7 days to actually come to a conclusion that what is actually happening. So it is always better, in my opinion. Let's see, it's completely up to you. There is no one fits all solution. That is my personal advice, that you can avoid the word section, unless until you can just have a look at some of the unless until there is a very big article which is there, you can just read at the headlines and figure out. So that is something which is very rare actually. So I would therefore advise against reading the whole of the world section. So you can read it at the end of the month and be equipped with that. Alright, then we come to the business section. So there will be 2 pages for business. The first page generally has the bigger news and the more important news. The second page would have lesser number of news relevant to UPSC. So that is what my general observation has been. So for instance, we have this news on the 21st about US starts anti-dumping probe into PTFE reasons from India. So it's important because we should know what is PTFE reasons, what are anti-dumping duties, what are countervailing duties. So those things are part of static section also, and simultaneously they are a part of our current affairs as well. So an important advice which I can give is that the thing is that you have to link your current affairs with the static. So if you read some article in which some portion of your static portion has been mentioned, you can always go back and revise your static portion as well. So for example, if there is an article on say Chief Vigilance Commissioner, so you can go back to your Lakshmikant, read what were the functions, what were the roles and what were the responsibilities of CVC, and then it will even help you revise your static portion. Alright, so that is there. Then again here also there would be in brief. So in brief is something which are there in most of these pages that you should not neglect at all. Alright. So, okay, then after the business section there are 2 sections. One will have more news, the other will have lesser news. So after that there will be this sports section, one of the most happy section, because you do not have to read it at all. No questions are asked from sports these days. They have it's long gone, the trend has gone. Probably if some of your parents would be saying that बेटा आप sports भी पढ़ लो, आप वो ज्ञानपीठ award किसने जीता ये सब पढ़ लो. So that used to be a trend. पहले ये सब सवाल पूछते थे. There was a trend that these such kind of questions were asked, but they are not asked anymore. Therefore you should avoid that. Do not divulge into reading these sports section, entertainment section. Alright, so avoid that. Alright, you can do a Hindu crossword if you feel like, and you can do a Sudoku. That is something which I leave up to you, but rest of all you can avoid. Then we have the last section, which is generally something which people avoid. People neglect the last section, last page, thinking that the newspaper is ended, we do not have to read anything. That was actually something which I used to do a while back, but a lot of good news are given on the live section, which is generally the 18th page, last page. So in which things like the new discoveries sometimes are talked about, some information related, some news article related to science and technology are talked about, so which is important. Again here in brief is there. So I'm telling you, in brief is something, just skim through them every day. Invariably there will be a couple of important articles, important concepts talked about there. Alright, so then we have the Delhi Metro. do not go into that. Alright, so this is how the weekday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday newspapers would generally be. Alright, then we have the most dreaded Sunday edition. Sunday edition has two parts, 2 paper come. So the first day the newspaper came in that fashion, right? I was so happy that the first paper is ended. Oh my god, there were not too many news articles. Then suddenly I see that there's paper 2 part 2 as well. I was worried, what is this? Then I figured out that they started to come out with two parts as well. So the Sunday edition is something in which there are lot of articles. 42 pages are there, and a lot of articles, and therefore we have to be even more discreet here. All right. Again, the rest of the things would be same. So I'll just talk about the things which are unique about Sunday edition. So the front page would be something which you should read, go through it. The city, something, avoid city, avoid classified, avoid matrimony, avoid city again, then avoid north, south, those things you can avoid. Alright, then we come to the nation section, in which some important articles are there again, as they are in the case of any other day. Alright. Then news articles, there will be good number of news articles on Sunday. All right, so go through them as I've already mentioned. So to make your things easier, the course is there, right? My course is there on key news articles, in which I also talk about the Indian Express as well. So the thing is, I not only limit myself in that course to the Hindu, but also to Indian Express, so that you can read the good articles. Then on 11th, 12th or 13th page, depending on the other pages, we have this page of who, what, why, when and where. Very important page. It has information from the scratch से चीजें बताई जाती, which is very unique. This was started after the recent revamp of the Hindu structure, and on Sundays who, what, why, when and where section comes, in which generally what, why and is something, those two are generally, my opinion has been that they are the ones which are there's a larger frequency of good articles to come at, but this is not something which you should avoid at all. Go through the bigger headlines there. You'll understand that whether the article is important or not. Like for instance, the who is Harvey Weinstein, Hollywood shame. So we do not need to know who is Harvey Weinstein, what is Hollywood shame. So we neglect that. Then we come to the what for today, that is the lowdown on 1 year of note ban. So note ban demonetization. So criticism has been given here, so you should read that. Alright, take it by the pinch of salt and make a balanced opinion. That is my that is what I generally tell to all of the people that try to come up with a balanced opinion. So the what is something very, very important today. Then why is also important. Is it difficult to clean up the Ganga? So about cleaning up of Ganga, how what steps government has taken, why it has failed, how is it a humongous task, and what is the benchmark of making it what is the benchmark to basically state any river to be clean. So those things are talked about, therefore it is very important. Then we have when, which is not important, 20th October, and where also is not so important, about Yavatmal. So but it can be important for some optionals, so that is something which you can read about, but not generally for the GS. Then the next section after who, what, why, when and where, we have the column width, which generally do not have good news. Column width does not have good news generally, but you can go through the headlines, figure out if randomly some important thing comes up, but generally I do not go through that. I do not go through column width. Then we have the science and technology. So science and technology is something which we should know about, because on Sunday only science and technology section comes, wherein a dedicated I think couple of pages are generally there. Sometimes one page is there. The next page also is related to science and technology itself. So but science and technology has something, because there are a lot of news which are given, but do not read, or read but do not take, do not remember much of these content, in which there are some experimental drug or some experiment going on for which the results are expected to come, or some research has been done in some different country and published in a random journal. So you can avoid that. If you are not into science and technology much, you can avoid it, because those won't be asked, because the research is still going on, and they are not some very humongous big article as such, some big discovery as such. So generally the thing is, for science and technology you need to concentrate on the articles which are relevant for India. First of all, that is the first litmus test, and the second litmus test is that if it is not relevant to India much, so if it is a world science and technology current affairs, only those would be important, which would be a big event, something like gravitational waves. So you can see it was a big thing, something like the CERN laboratory. So those are things which would be important, but rest of that, unless until it has correlation to India, you can avoid those science and technology articles as well. Like for example, I'll give you an example. Yeah, all right. So that yeah, like the first is only IIT teams use plant extract heat to kill skin cancer cells. I do not think it is an important article, because there's no they have talked about something which has been published in International Journal of Biological Macromolecules. So not something which UPSC would actually touch upon. All right, and then but the articles such as more species of snakehead fish found. So we should know what is a snakehead fish, and the species name is also given. So there's something very concrete, and they have talked that a new species has been found, and there have been discoveries in the past as well. So you can see something which has been already established related to science and technology, and something, and about that something has been taken front. So that is something which you can talk about. All right, then here also capsules are given. So like in I had already talked about in brief were given, capsules are given on the Sunday edition. So those capsules are also important. Like there is an article on slow light in which it talks about that the speed of light can be actually theoretically reduced to the and even they're trying to make practical experiments out of it, reduced to the to the speed of almost walking pace. So you can see that something you should know, that speed of light can also change. So theoretically that is something which is there, and this article reminds you of that. All right, so then we have the next section, which is the being section. Generally not so important. Some of the articles on the left side are generally important, which is around the world. So around the world some articles are important, but not all, because again here they are very very recent discoveries which are just being speculated. Some of the speculations are generally given, so not so important as such. Alright, but then like the article on when kitchen smoke can kill, so that is an important article. So the thing is, these section will not generally have, the being section will not generally have very important articles, but sometime or the other they might come up with good articles. So do not just leave it out. Like for example, you leave out the sports section, do not leave out the being section at all. Just go through them and then decide which articles are important. Then we have the non-fiction, as I have mentioned. Like the sports section, non-fiction, leave it out completely. No need to read about it at all. Then followed by it, we have the sports section, again leave it out. The sports sections again, like, so the paper ends after the sports section. Then you feel very happy. But then you see the section 2 of the Hindu on Sunday. So then again you have to start the same process. Alright, let's see now the section 2 of the Hindu of the Sunday edition. So the front page again is very important. There will be good news, but generally on the section 2, number of news are come on the front page, so it's not too much time taking. Like then we do not have the city section, the the state specific sections in the section 2, and directly come to news. So in which sometime or the other good articles are there. Again, then we have the world section. The world section, as I have already mentioned, you can avoid. You can read the monthly summary at the end of the month of some of the good coaching institutes or some of the online resources which are available. Alright, so that world section I avoid. So generally two sections are coming. Then we have the dispatches. Dispatches sometimes come up with amazing, great articles. Like so it will generally have 5 columns on different issues. So like for example, today's newspaper has the 5th one as an important issue for us, which is India stretches its long arm to Djibouti. So why is it important? Because of the string of world policy of China, then the relation between India and China, Djibouti being having a military base of China. But the others, like for example, hate speech in Pakistan Parliament, not important for us. Reaching out to Britain's Sikh community, alright, not so important. We already know that the outreach to any community of NRIs in any country would be important, so not something which you should read explicitly. Then we have Austria's political shift towards the right. We don't it doesn't matter to us much unless and until, as I have already stated, unless and until you have an option such as public administration or international political science and public and international relations, these articles then will come of use, but for general studies not of use at all. Alright, then we have the next section of the framed, in which some photos would be given, not important at all. Alright, then we have the big story, again not important. It is something like the ground zero itself. Then we have the your money and the business section, in which some articles would be important. Like for example, today's newspaper, we have now a safer marketplace for loans, in which P2P lending portal have been talked about. So therefore it is very important that what are P2P lending, why is it important for prelims perspective as well, and as well as for mains perspective. Like for example, if there's a question on startups and how to how conducive is India for startups, you can mention that with the advent of with the existence of portals such as P2P lending, there's better crowdsourcing and therefore the funding can be now raised through crowdsourcing in a better way and a more organized way. So that is why this article would be important. All right. Then we have after your money, we have the business section. Again, as I've already mentioned, that some articles would be important, so you have to go through them, but do not go through the articles such as the stocks of XYZ companies risen this by this much, the Sensex fell by this much. You should know what is Sensex and Nifty, but you should not know specifically which, unless you are into investing yourself. But those articles are not important at all. Like for example, I can state like example, Casa Grant prop care to buy to facilities service firms, not important for this particular XYZ company buys something, not important for us at all. All right. Then we have the second page of business, important business around abroad, right? That is something which is there in the Sunday edition, not important as per me, unless until there is something related to India which is mentioned. I don't think that is important at all. All right. Then we have the open page. Open page is again not important. You can avoid that completely. Then we have live section, again as always, the last page, which is their live section, in which some of the important news would be there related to science and technology, some news related to Nobel laureates, something of that sort. Some so like for example, ancient Turkish town prepares to vanish under flood waters. So that is something which you can just have a look at it, which particular town are we talking about, because if this is in news in multiple times, so what happens is UPSC has an trend of asking locations in terms of, they'll give you 3 different cities of the world and tell you to arrange them west to east or north to south. So for that we need to be on our toes on these locations. Like for example, this Turkish town is there by the name of Hassan Cave, if I'm not pronouncing it properly, I'll apologize for that. But the live section in general would have some good news. Again, in brief would be there. So in brief, conceptual are something which are generally in the left side. Do not neglect them. Just go through them once. Some or the other article would be important. Just go through the one-liners there which are given. So then that is the end. Generally then we have the magazine and everything. So classified not important at all. So that is largely what I wanted to talk about. यही मेरे को आप लोग को समझाना था कि न्यूज़पेपर कैसे हिंदू पढ़ना है, क्योंकि if you see after this कितनी चीज़ें मैंने बोल दिया कि not important, neglect. So that is how you should also do it. Compartmentalize, channelize your strength and your time into only those things which are important. Do not read too much, because UPSC is not about reading too much. It is about reading what is relevant, probably again and again. Alright, so if you want to revise things, that is something which you should do, but do not go for too much of information from different sources or garbage information, so to say. So that is largely it I want to talk about. I hope it helped you in any way. So you can comment in the comment section below if you think any other other topics which you want me to take a live session on. I can I can do that in the coming few weeks regarding the same. So just comment your opinion about what next can I take a live session. Alright, thank you so much. Have a great day and a great Monday tomorrow. Bye bye.